Welcome to 1,000 Mile Coffee. We're riding with Jason and David. I'm Jason.
I'm David.
On this particular session of 1,000 Mile Coffee, we're going to gear this podcast towards trucking. And for this session, we're going to gear towards picking the correct truck driving school and what to expect.
You're mainly for your newer drivers coming into the industry, what to expect going to school, what do you want to do, if you want to go through, if you want to have the company pay for it, sign a contract, or if you want to do independent where you pay for it yourself. The pros and cons between the two.
Yeah, because David went through company and I went through out of pocket paying for it myself.
Yeah, it's kind of we're going to cover what we can between the two, and it all depends on however you want to do it, is which one would be better for you when you're coming into the trucking industry. Which one would be better for you? Which one fits better into how you want to start off your career?
Right. And first off, when you get ready to go into the school, you got to find the right school for you. What's in your area? I know for me and him, we went through the same school, and our school that we went through they didn't do a lot of highway driving. You know, you was on the highway long enough to switch gears, and then they put us strictly on the back roads because you're not always going to be on the highway. So you need to be comfortable on the back roads. And you also want to look into, make sure the company doesn't do strictly automatics and you end up with an automatic restriction on your license.
Oh yeah, because if you have the automatic restriction, which will be a problem later on, because you have your smaller companies, which they don't run all automatics. You're going to be very limited on who you can go to work for. And then as having the automatic restriction, you're stuck in automatics. And if a company you go to work for has only manual transmissions, you're stuck. You can't work for them. They can't hire you.
That's like our buddy works for Purdue, and they are needing drivers bad, but 3 people have hired or has applied, and they've had to let all 3 go because they have automatic restrictions. And they don't all have automatic trucks.
Exactly. That's one of the nice things is you've got to be versatile and be able to do both, which if you are coming into it and you say you're going to only drive an automatic, you're going to work for this one company, period, then if that's what you want to do, go for it. But if you're you're just wanting to start off here or looking to more differentiate how you want to start your career, I'd say you want to have more of a broadened horizon in your history and your background.
Yeah, and I bring up the whole backroads issues like I had because I had talked to a driver one time who had told me that their school, they did very little backroad driving. It was all on the interstate, and he didn't start back driving any kind of side roads until he got with his trainer, and he was scared. And there wasn't no need for that. It's some of these schools you want to look into, they are crackerjack schools. They just push you through. They don't care. You want to make sure you go with one that'll actually train you and teach you.
Oh yeah, that is going to be one. That's one of the biggest things you want to look for is what we call in the industry, what I've heard them called as trucker mills, which is basically they get a heartbeat of the seat. They teach you just enough to get you your CDL, and they ship you out the door. They don't actually teach you anything.
Right.
Which the schools are honestly supposed to teach you a little bit. You're not going to be able to just go fly right into a truck and go 90 mile an hour down the highway. No, but it's supposed to get you at least get you started into knowing what your trainer can work on when you get into your trucking company. You're not coming in basically knowing nothing.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna let David take this part here because he was the company guy. He signed with the company and they paid for his truck driving school. I'll let him bring up the things he went through and what he experienced in the school.
Yes, and I applied to work for, I'm going to throw out the company, I applied at Driver Solutions, and I applied for Pam Transport to get started. Pam Transport paid for my schooling. They paid me while I went to school. They paid for room and board while I was going to the school.
Oh, wait, did you say they paid you while you was in school?
Wait, no, incorrect. They didn't. You're correct. They did not pay me. They paid for my schooling and they paid room and board, but they did not pay me.
Oh, okay. I'm about to say, wow.
You threw me off.
I
forgot
Sorry
about that. Yeah, that was my mistake. It's been a few years since I've done it. So they paid for the hotel. They paid for the school. And the only thing I had to do was I signed up. I had to sign a contract I would work for them for a year, and they would take what it costed out of my paycheck weekly. The pros to it is you don't have to pay the money up front. You're guaranteed the job for you're not guaranteed the job for a year, but you're not having to pay the money up front. I know I'm repeating myself here. I'm trying to refresh my brain. And the biggest thing, it's not as hard trying to find a job doing that way. They're going to teach you what to do. You didn't have to pay for it, and you slowly pay it back over the year. The cons to it is you by signing that contract, you are to work for that company for the year. Some companies it's a year, some it's 6 months. It all depends. I've heard for some guys it's 6 months they pay it back. Some guys it's a year contract. Me, it was a year. The one thing you want to look into, I left the company early to go to work for somebody else. It bit me in the tail pretty bad because I had to pay back what they had paid forward. And it costed me total about $4,500. And had I stuck out the full year, I wouldn't have owed them anything. That's the biggest thing you want to look at is making sure if you're going to do it, stick with them for the year. Unless there is a major problem, then it all depends. That's the only con is you are stuck with them for the year.
See, now you just said that it costed you $4,500 when you quit. How long did you work with them before then?
I worked for them for 8-9 months.
Okay. You worked almost your full year, and they charged you $45.
Yeah, they charged me the full. Instead of doing that was one of the cons is instead of bag paying whatever I'd already paid, they just charged me the full amount.
Right. Well, see. Now here's the weird thing. Eric, which was a buddy of mine that I went through FTA with, that was the trucking school that we went through. He signed on with Pam. Pam paid his school, and now I'm just going off of what he told me. He could have been lying, I don't know, but I don't think he would have. When he signed on, he was having a problem once he got his license, even getting in to start training. He waited 3 weeks, and they never got him because they were slow on trainers, is what they kept telling him. So he come to Schneider and just never even went to work for him, and they back charged him like $6,000.
Yeah. It all depends. I mean, for me, it was $4,500. That's what I had to pay back. The $6,000, I guess, it also includes the school, where I went to school was in Ashboro, and the hotel. It was what they charged you for was the 4 weeks at the hotel, the training there in Tawnytown, Arkansas, and basically back charging you for all that. And I don't think it was equal pricing. They upcharged you.
And it very well could be. I know it wasn't no equal pricing because I paid out of pocket and I only paid $3,600.
Yeah.
So I know it wasn't no equal pricing.
Oh, heck no.
Now, let me ask you this: when you went to work for them, what was the stipulations?
What do you mean by the stipulations? Basically,
well, what all did you have to do? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't just. I mean, what was your pay like when you went to work for them versus what I got? When you started with them, you wasn't at a regular driver's pay. You had to do teamwork. You had to do certain things that was all listed in that contract.
Yeah, well, listed in the contract for Pam Transport. Now, it might be different from company to company, but you spent 2 weeks with a trainer, and because you were one of the contract drivers, you were required 6 months of teaming. 6 months teaming required, and it was 6 months solo. That's the other thing is, it was 6 months teaming, 6 months solo. When you were teaming, it was 17.5 cents a mile every mile the truck turns. And as a solo driver, you made 25 cents a mile. And that was at the time when I went through, which was years ago.
Right. So they could have changed some since then because wasn't there a lawsuit against them?
There was a lawsuit against them about a year or two ago.
Right.
Basically dealing with the pay and drivers not getting properly compensated.
Right. Now, with my experiences, I paid out of pocket. I wasn't leased to anybody. I was known as, or what they classified as, a free agent. Now, I went through the same training he did. The only difference was there was a few times recruiters would come in and talk to us, and they would sit down and tell us everything that they had to offer, trying to get us to come work for them. You got to be careful when listening to recruiters. I'll tell you that. I'm not saying they're going to lie to you, but they're not going to give it to you straight. They're going to salt everything with a little bit of sugar, for the simple fact their job is to get you to go work for them, and you got to keep that in mind. But we went through the exact same training. All in all, because he left early, I ended up paying less. And I could go anywhere that I wanted to that would take me as a new driver, which mostly going to be your mega fleets. Your first year is going to be a little rough. You're not going to get paid the best. I went to work for Schneider starting out, and my starting pay with them was 32 cents a mile, which isn't horrible starting with a company that's going to give you that foot in the door. But as you're there, the longer you're there, you get your little safety bonuses. You get more money. They'll give you a couple cent a mile raise, stuff like that. But once you've got 2 years, you'd say 2 years of clean record, the doors are open. You can go anywhere you want to.
Oh yeah, when you hit your 2 years, if you keep your record clean, the doors are wide open. You can go wherever you want. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to say you have to stay at that same company for 2 years. If after your 1 year, you will say, after your 1 year mark, if your record's still clean, your doors open up a little bit more. It's not fully open, but your doors open a little bit more to more of your, I guess the West Bay word would be your mid-grade companies. Not your mega fleets, but not your small mom and pop shops. Your smaller, more regional companies where you can up your pay a little bit, get away from the mega fleet if that's what you choose to do. If you are happy at your company and you're making good money and you're enjoying it, the biggest thing I recommend, stay. Do not leave. Don't sit there and bounce around. That was the mistake I made for 6 years, is I bounced around from company to company to company. And he's laughing over here because he knows it was my average over 6 years was I had worked for a company for an average of every 6 months. I was changing companies.
Hold on. That when we averaged that out, that was 2 years ago. All that's changed. No, 3 years ago when we averaged that out. The average has changed now, but yeah, at that time it was about every 6 months.
Every 6 months I was swapping to a different company. Now the company I work for now, I have worked for this gentleman on 3 separate occasions. This is my 3rd time coming to back work for him. That's the biggest thing, is if you find somewhere where you're happy, don't leave. If you are making good money, you have a good situation, everything's set up, don't leave. Your buddy might sit there and tell you the grass is greener over here and everything else, but I will tell you this, and pardon my English, but it's because that grass is fertilized with different bullshit. That's plain and simple.
Here's the thing, bud. Everybody's going to think the grass is greener on the other side. I did. I left Schneider and I went to work for Coastal. That was a mistake for me. For me, it might not have been for anybody else. But whenever you do leave, if you leave the company you're working for, do them right. Don't burn the bridge. Because I went back to Schneider and they hired me without hesitation. So wherever you go, the same thing with working here. You said this is your 3rd time. You never burned a bridge.
No. I made sure not to burn this bridge.
And that's one thing I can honestly say. When I'm going to circle back here, when we talked about you got to have 2 years to fully open the doors. With your small mom and pop companies, the company we work for is a very small company. We work at the same one, and I love working here. But when I first started, they wouldn't have hired me. Not because they didn't want to. They couldn't. Their insurance wouldn't allow it. A lot of your smaller companies who aren't self-sustained insurance-wise, like Schneider, pretty sure Warner Enterprises are.
Warner Enterprises, Swift,
they cover their own insurance. They don't have to go through an insurance company.
Oh yeah, they don't have their own insurance companies. They are their own insurance company.
Right,
they don't have companies they go through. Hence why they can hire the new drivers and are able to take care of the insurance because they are insured by themselves.
Right. Now, so that's why you have to make sure you keep a clean record. Do what you got to do. Keep your head down. I'm going to say this too. I haven't done any research on this. I'll let whoever's listening, if this is what they want to get into, decide to do research on their own. But when I went through school, I'm trying to think how to say this. There's two guys that I worked for that I was there with. They told me that unemployment paid theirs. Now, I never did any looking into it. I don't know anything about it, but okay, apparently one of our drivers that we work here with, unemployment paid for their truck driving school. So that's a possibility. That's something you might want to look into. You know, if I'd have known that, that's what I'd have done. I'd have went through unemployment to do it, but I didn't know it at the time. So I went to the bank and took a loan out for $3,600 to pay for this.
Now, here's another thing I could throw at you, because I know this is going to be a radio show. This is going to be farther out than just our little local area here. We live in North Carolina, so our weather, we actually have 4 seasons versus some other people. The biggest thing you want to look for is when
they all might be in one day.
And they might all be in one day, exactly. But the biggest thing you want to look for is when you're going to school, you're just starting out driving. The one thing you want to look at is what season are you going to go to school in? Because if you're going to truck driving school at the end of fall and you're just starting driving and you live in New York, you're going to have to learn. You're a rookie driver and you're starting out on icy, snowy roads. That's the one thing you want to watch out for is if you, when starting out, look at what time of the year you're starting. Luckily, when I started out in March to April time, so I had a good 6 months under me before I had to deal with any winter weather.
Yeah, see, I started in October, so I went straight into winter weather. But that's at the end of the day. That's up to the driver. If you feel comfortable driving in it, take it slow, go. If you don't, pull that thing over and stop. Ain't no load worth anybody's life. That's just common sense.
Oh yeah, that is another thing. Is you are the captain of that truck. Nobody can tell you what to do otherwise.
Right. Don't let any dispatcher or anybody say, "Oh, well, you have to do it." No, you ain't got to do nothing. And there is, I don't know what the number is. We'll have to look it up and give it to you next time. But in the FMCSR, there is a article number under coercion that they cannot do anything.
Yep.
They can't force you to drive.
Oh yeah, and if they do try to force you to drive, the biggest thing I could say is if they are telling you you must drive, record it. You get them to send you a message, something, screenshot it, picture it, because that is coercion, and that is one nice lawsuit. Because
no, I wouldn't go straight to lawsuit. That just keeps them from firing you. They can't. Oh, they can't do that. Of course, if they fire you, I mean, shit, it ain't like you can't just pick up the phone and have 4 more job offers by the end of the day because you did something safe. They're going to fire you. I wouldn't worry about it.
No.
Another thing to think of. I've got a couple people that I still talk to that don't even drive truck anymore, but we went through truck driving school together. If you're going to be in that truck all day, the phone is going to keep you sane. Music will only go so far.
Music, your audio book, stuff like that. It's great, but after about 2-3 hours, you're sitting there like,
you need human interaction.
You need human interaction. Get phone numbers from the guys you are going to school through. If you feel you're sitting there talking back and forth with some guys every day, y'all find you got a lot in common, get phone numbers. And the sad part is you may never see these people again. I've got guys that me and Jason both talk back and forth with that I've never seen their face. I've never even met them, but yet we talk back and forth all day for hours on end on the phone. And the other thing is a lot of people sit there and think, oh, don't you get bored with subjects? No, you can talk about the most random things. And you will start off on hot-boiled peanuts and somehow end up over here on 5-star dining and bounce back over here, and you're talking about Ford pickup trucks. Just those conversations, people don't understand how, but they will all link together in some form of way.
Yeah, we went on that little tangent talking about this podcast. We was talking about the load that I was hauling and things we're going to talk about on this series. And in a 10-minute period, it went from I'm in South Carolina, oh, look, hot-boiled peanuts, just passing a sign, making a comment, to the different kinds of nuts, buying the cheaper ones versus the expensive ones, gourmet cooking, 5-star dining, and then us scratching our head going, wait a minute, how did we get here? it happens very easily.
That's why that's why the conversations you're able to keep going. And the one thing, another word that's going to be heard is a thing called trucker Tourette's.
Okay, yet again, all right, now I almost pause you there, bud, because we're getting off topic here. That's why we got what's wrote down.
Very true. Here we go.
So
this is exactly what we're talking about. We're going from one subject. We can sit here and we're going to call these the little detours. We're going to go back to the main subject here. Squirrel.
Well, this is, so see, it's for us, it's not doing, this isn't doing a show. This is something that we wish we'd have had when we first got into it. But I mean, luckily I had you. You had about a year's experience ahead of me, you and your brother both. And so y'all helped me out a lot. And if this is a way that we can give back to help, I'm more than happy to do this. Now so on this session, essentially we covered the pros and cons. You do what you want on the truck driving schools. I would always say pay out of pocket before you pay for somebody, but or let a company pay for you, but you might not be able to.
Yeah, if you're unable to pay out of pocket, then don't be afraid. Just because the contract is not something to shy away from. Is read it thoroughly, make sure everything's going to be good for you, and just because you've seen one and they're willing to hire you, look around. It's just like buying a car or buying something else. You're signing a contract for a year. Look around. Look at your other options. See if one's going to be a little bit better than the other.
Yeah. One thing I would like to touch on before we go is with your recruiting. I didn't speak on this a lot. You got to really watch what they say. And the first thing the recruiters are going to do when they walk in there is, oh, look at the pretty shiny equipment we have. We have Peterbilts. We have Kenworths. We have, don't look at that. You got to look at your home time. Look at your pay per mile. Look at your average miles per week. But like I said, they're going to sugarcoat everything. They're going to sprinkle that sugar on there to give. It's their job to get you to come work. And this is my experience. When I went to work for Schneider, I was a little worried about going big city driving, even though every state has big cities. But I was told that I would never go to New Jersey or New York. Within the first 2 weeks, I was in New Jersey. My recruiter told me I didn't go to New Jersey. I went to New Jersey. But you got to look at your home time. Look at your pay per mile. Somebody can come up, oh, I make 56 cents a mile. Well, how many miles you average in a week? Oh, well, our guys average 1,600 miles. Okay. What about this company? Well, this company pays 35 cents a mile, but they do close to 3,000 miles a week. So you got to, I haven't done the math on that. I don't even know which one would come out better, but that's something you got to look into. Just because it's a less cent per mile, look at the miles you drive.
Yeah, that is a big thing, is looking into it. Is you want to figure out which company will be better, which company will be the better fit for you. Now, starting off, I pull dry van. I've done nothing but dry van. I went to a little bit of open deck for a little bit, where I hauled glass, but I wasn't able to handle the open deck with my back, so I had to go back to pulling box. Now, that's the other thing you want to look into when you're coming into looking for a new company is, what do you want to look for? Do you want to do open deck? Do you want to do tanker? Do you want to do reefer, drive-in? There's all sorts of different there's all sorts of different fields here. It's not just, oh, I'm going to go drive a truck. Okay, you're going to drive a truck. What do you want to haul?
Right, and I mean, you got somebody who comes in. I want to do that. 13 axle heavy haul, 16 axle heavy haul. Okay, well then you're going to go pull flatbed for a while, for several years. You're going to need that experience before you get into heavy haul. Dry van's not as bad. You hook to a box, you pull it down the road. There's not really any stepping stone there. So it depends on what you want to do, to what company you go to as a stepping stone to get where you truly want to be. My big thing, my biggest concern was always home time. I've got a wife and kids at home, and I want to be home with them as much as possible while being able to provide at the same time.
Whereas for me, I have no wife, no kids, no girlfriend. I mean, I didn't make enough money to move out of my parents' house until I started driving a truck. And which that point, I run normally 2 weeks at a time, and I'm home for, out of a month, I'm home for maybe 5-6 days.
Yeah, and to where I'm home every week. I go home every weekend, but that's what I needed. Now, if I need now at the same time, even if a company tells you, yeah, we'll get you home every single weekend, that's not true. There's going to be, things are going to happen, and it might not even be on your company. It could just be, hey, all right, bad weather, you got snowed in, you can't go anywhere. Well, you're out that weekend. So don't always expect that. I've ran weekends here for my boss. He's called me up, hey, man, I need a favor. Gotcha, let's go. It happens.
Well, this concludes our session of 1,000 Mile Coffee. Thank you very much for turning in, ladies and gentlemen. Next session, we'll be covering surviving your first year on the road. And as always,
keep her safe and keep her greasy side down.